Welcome to our podcast about the systems in the games we play and how those inspire the ones we make. I'm Sam.
And I'm CJ, and this is Systems in Play. Perfect.
It's unironically that song gets stuck in my head so often.
Wait, what were you singing? I was just doing a generic jingle.
Oh no, that was I was doing a very poor interpretation of the intro music that you made.
Oh yeah.
It's stuck in my head constantly.
I think after I made it and it got stuck in my head, I was like, this is it. This is the one thing that I can put out there in the world.
That's how you know. That's how you know.
Yeah.
Well, we are here.
Yeah.
We are dear. If you're listening to this in the present, right around the time it comes out, you may have noticed a bit of a gap in the release schedule.
Yeah.
A couple reasons for that. One, it started out, we wanted to switch from Tuesday releases to Friday releases. So we were going to do that. And so we recorded an episode on Saturday like we do. And then I go to edit it on like a Monday. And then the episode's not there. Well, at least half the episode is not there.
Yeah.
Still don't really know exactly what happened.
I still think Merlin did it.
I think that's very fair. I
think he unplugged my cord when we weren't looking.
I think there's a very good chance that that's exactly what happened. He's a bad editor. Or maybe he just didn't want to edit.
Yeah. He got a week off.
Yeah. It is National Cat Day.
Oh, yeah.
So he knew.
Happy National Cat Day, guys.
Happy National Cat Day. Go give your cat a pet for me.
Well, you missed it. If you're listening to this, you missed National Cat Day. And you didn't know it was National Cat Day, you missed it. Sorry.
You can still give your cat a pet from me, though. Just give him a little scritch behind the ear and be like, this one's from Sam. They'll know what it means.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we tragically lost episode 7. We were both pretty proud of how that one came out.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see it gone into the ether. If anybody's interested in listening to my audio only, we can release that on the feed. But I will release it as a stereo track, so you can only listen to it in one ear.
It's going to be a $20 paywall too. You gotta pay for that.
Yeah. We'll start a Patreon, and that will be the one thing, the one member exclusive.
Oh.
So we thought about trying to recreate it. I just could not. I didn't have the heart to try and recover that topic back to back. I was just constantly like, I think I would have been too in my head about it. That one was a little bit more led by me than some of the others, and I don't got it in me. So I'm gonna do a different topic this week, and we'll probably revisit that other topic in the future.
That's very fair. I think one episode we lost, a minute of audio?
Yeah.
When I was talking about something, and we went back and I tried to recreate that. It felt wrong, so I couldn't imagine doing a whole episode again, actually, now that I think about it.
We were talking about Jak and Daxter.
Yeah.
I think it was like maybe the second episode.
Yeah.
I'm curious if anybody noticed that. Probably not. Maybe in the future somebody will if more people listen to it. But I think we did a pretty good job of covering it up and like retreading. But I just can't imagine trying to do like a full hour and a half of that.
Yeah, don't blame you. Another big thing is we have a Discord now that's open.
Yeah, it was a good day for productivity. We recorded a full episode that went down the drain, and then we made the Discord. Right now it's pretty dry, but we're gonna just be using it as kind of like I don't know, just like the central hub for like talking about the website. We were thinking about it, and it just for actually having more detailed conversations about games and game development. The YouTube comment section or like a YouTube community post didn't really feel like the right place. Twitter,
we don't have one of those yet.
I don't know if I want one. We'll see. See what the future holds. I like Mastodon in principle, but I know like many large entities, be it individual or podcast, that have a Mastodon and they have no interactions on their thing. And it just doesn't feel like it's quite there yet. And Discord feels maybe a little bit more like a community where people can talk and hang out.
Yeah.
So we're trying out, we have a free-for-all channel, just anything goes. But we're also going to be posting for each episode kind of the leading question topic, so the question of the week for that episode. And we, as kind of like, we'll say our piece obviously in the episode, but then everybody in the community can talk about that in the Discord.
And even though this podcast, we talk a lot about playing video games, at its core, I still feel like it's a game dev podcast.
Yeah.
We like to talk about how games work, so we have a section to post stuff you've made, stuff we've made too, like art, music, or just straight up any games that you've made.
Yeah.
We want to talk about, there's a section for that. And I think that's going to be my favorite part.
A lot of communities like to talk about game development and like to, have opportunities to like more abstractly talk about the concepts, but it's like no self-promotion, no talking about the things you did. And like, I understand why you don't want people throwing in spam, but we want to see, like, this is a game dev show and we want to like hear if there happens to be anybody in the community working on other stuff. I want to hear about it. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, no, go show it off to the world, dude.
Yeah, show it off to our massive community, to the whole world. We have approximately 8 billion people in the Discord, and they're waiting to see your posts. Come on and join. 8 billion minus 1. It's just waiting for you.
Go
when you're here, your family.
Go show it to the like 5 people.
No. 5 million people.
Yes, million.
But yeah, excited about that. I think it's going to be fun. Neither one of us use Discord for much other than like DMs right now. I'm a part of approximately 50 Discords that I never post in because I find it kind of intimidating to jump into like a large group discussion. I think that the system of just having a bunch of threads that are not threads, but just channels. I'm like, I don't know where I post something and then somebody else posts something funnier and then my post gets lost and I find that kind of hard. So we did the forum style, which is one of the options if you have a community Discord, kind of as a means to hopefully like mitigate that, and for things like artwork and game development, hopefully your post doesn't get as lost within a long comment thread. But we'll see. We're still, all of that to say is like, we don't use Discord enough to really know like how people like it, and it's something that we can evolve and change over time as the community grows.
As Sam put it while we were setting up the Discord, I've never felt more like a boomer.
It's true. It's true. But
those are the announcements for this week. Sad loss of a really solid episode.
Yeah.
A lot of weight was pulled by Sam on that episode. He had the whole topic laid out. He's going to do that again.
Yeah.
Take it away, Sam.
All right. So, yeah, like CJ said, we're going to do a bit like I don't want to say a different format, but like a slightly different format than how we normally do it.
Yeah.
And just see how it goes. So I'm going to be bringing in a larger topic that I'm going to continue to beat around the bush about for 13 more seconds until I actually say what it is. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. We're talking about how to design a character creator. And so this topic was inspired by a project that we kind of have cooking in the back. Very extreme, like just concept phase right now. We haven't done anything. But one part of that, one essential part of it would be a character creator, character builder, character editor, like a customization tool for making your character. And I started kind of like brainstorming ideas for it and like writing things down. And eventually I was like, the amount of research I'm doing this is basically a systems and play episode. So I not really pivoted. I just kind of like adjusted my notes with the concept of an episode in mind and used those thoughts about what I think would make for a good character creation tool for this project that we're working on, and kind of made it into kind of like a general advice slash kind of my thoughts on what makes them good and what makes them bad. And, you know, in the future, if this project goes anywhere, or even if I go through with just like making the character creation portion, maybe it can come back and talk about like how it actually was implementing those things and what my expectations were versus the reality of actually doing it.
I'm excited for you to take me on this journey, because I love me a good character creator in a video game, and I have a lot of opinions about them too. So I'm excited to see where we go and what you think about all of these character creators in video games.
I have a lot more thoughts than I expected to either. All right, so we're going to start with a question.
Oh, yeah.
CJ, when you play a game with a character creator, and actually let me take a half step back and just make sure that like everybody fully understands what I'm talking about when I say character creator.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 2 hours that you spend at the beginning of Baldur's Gate 3. I'm talking about making your family in The Sims. You're the Mii Makers, the Soul Calibur, Street Fighter monstrosities that get created in the world.
Yeah.
The little tool series of menus that you have to set up your character that you play as in the game. I'm going to be talking about different forms of those, going to be talking about like different implementations, but at its core, like that's the type of thing we're talking about. So when you play a game with a character creation tool, do you make yourself? Do you make a unique character? Or do you use just like a preset thing? Are you like, I don't want to mess with this. This is like not really something I'm interested in interacting with. Well, what's kind of your standard?
Me? Okay. So I can answer this. I answer it differently now than I would have back like middle school, high school. Because back then, I would spend hours making a fucking OC, an entire backstory, just to play Soul Calibur and fight with him for like 2 fights and never touch the game again. Now, my favorite thing to do is I play games like Xcom, where you get randomly generated characters that join your crew.
Right.
Sometimes I'll get a star that does really good, and later on I'll recreate that guy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's how I do it now. Or I just make a spoof of like Bob Ross or some shit.
That's also really fun.
That is how I make characters now in any game with a character creator. Except Baldur's Gate.
I was going to say, let me pull it a specific example. What did you do for Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, that follow-up to my answer is it really depends on the game. Baldur's Gate 3, I did like channel my inner middle schooler, high schooler, and I spent way too long creating this bard with an entire backstory and like every little detail about who this person is outside of how he looks. But that's because I knew what Baldur's Gate 3 was. I knew I was getting into something that had a lot of choices that lets me flesh him out more than just 2 fights in Street Fighter or Soul Calibur.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
But that's how I do it.
Yeah. That makes sense. For me, when I do it, I tend to just kind of like come in with a vague sense of the type of character I want, and then try and make something that kind of fits with what my mind is thinking. So, for example, with Baldur's Gate 3, I was like, okay, I know I want to be a wizard. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what kind of wizard do I want to be? Like, I want to be old and disgusting and like maybe seen some real shit before I started this. So I'm like, okay, let's do some scars. I think for mine, I added like, I saw the plant tattoos and I wanted to kind of imagine that they were scars in this weird way where maybe he had like, not thinking of anything in particular, but I'm like, maybe he was like into some weird like plant magic, and this was a curse that he has now like worked through. And that was, just like adding some amount of like mystery even to myself for what this character was, through these like character designs, and really just kind of like looking at the options and seeing what I thought was interesting for a character rather than kind of going in with any specific idea in mind. A vague idea and then kind of fleshing out what that idea is as I was using the creation tools, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. That's interesting. I like in RPGs like Baldur's Gate, you're starting from level 1, so I always try to work that into the like character that I'm making, like he's just starting out or something in some way, like the bard I told you about. I wanted his whole lore to be that he's just been a bard that like sings at taverns all the time, and he wants to be the heroes that he's singing about, and that's what started his adventure.
I love that.
I always try to work in the like, oh, you're starting at level 1 into your character.
That's honestly really smart, and I was very quickly after making the character, I'm like, this doesn't really make any sense, but whatever.
No, it's fun though. And I imagine that's how a lot of people are going to answer this, is that they're just making their D&D character that they've used their whole life.
Yeah, I wonder how often people are just making like some character that they've already designed in their head. I know I've like made characters I've made before in a different engine, just because I thought it would be interesting, or because I didn't want to put that much thought into it. I'm like, oh, I'll do this guy that I did before. I don't know why. I literally could not tell you why. I like to make my characters green. I don't know. It's like fantasy bullshit. I'm like,
hell yeah.
I like green. I'll make him green and give him green hair. He's a fucking green giant.
Hell
I don't know why I do it.
I was so upset opening Baldur's Gate 3 and they're not going to let me be a goblin. I want to be a shitty little fucker that runs around casting chaotic spells, but they wouldn't let me.
That would be incredible DLC, especially given how like the goblins are big characters early on in the game. I think that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
So getting into the topic, I'm going to start with a couple definitions that I kind of came up with. I don't look these up in the dictionary. They're not real.
Darn, puts my dictionary away. Darn.
Yeah, everybody put your dictionaries away. We'll wait. Okay.
All right, good. Thank you.
Okay, so when designing a character creator, you need to consider whether or not the player is going to be making an avatar or a character. And it might be different, but just considering these terms, an avatar would be a representation of the player. I want to go into the game and I want to make me, and I want to be me in that game. That would be your avatar. Whereas a character is, might be a unique creation, OC do not steal, or, like you said, a pop culture figure.
Yeah.
It could also be an avatar. I think there might be a little bit of overlap where there's some games where you really do just kind of expect the user to make themselves. Something like Pokemon Unite, there's like a little character creator. They don't really give you enough flexibility to do anything unique there. And so I'm like, I'll give him my hair, I'll give him my eyes, and like it kind of looks like me. You could maybe do something cool. I know a lot of people just make a girl because that's what they want to do for whatever reason.
That's interesting that you said, because I think I never make myself, but I think when I played Pokemon Sword and Shield, that was the only time that I've ever tried to just make myself, because there's just not that many options. So
right.
I'm just going to make me because I look stupid and simple to make.
Yeah. It's like, there are just some times when you can tell that's kind of what the game wants. It's not really giving you these extravagant options that really set you up for making a character. And so you just kind of default to yourself. And so when you're designing a character creation tool, that's kind of something you need to consider from the very beginning, is what what do you expect people to want to do? I think, like you said, Pokemon tends to, you are you. This is you in the game, and you are going on your Pokemon adventure.
Yeah.
There are certain RPGs where it's like, this is supposed to be a stand-in for you, the player. This is not really a character per se. But, looking on the opposite end, for something like Baldur's Gate 3, people are more likely going to want to make a character. Like, I'm not going to make a gnome because I think that that's me, or a dragonborn because that's me. Those people are making a character. And so the options that are available in the game, there's a little bit of back and forth. Not only do they influence the type of characters that people will create, but the options that you include should kind of represent the types of characters that you expect.
Yeah.
Pokemon, it makes sense that there's more limited options, but if I'm playing Baldur's Gate and I have this idea that I want to make this like old wizened character who has this entire backstory, maybe I want to give them some scars or like, some like interesting details to the character themselves that define some like aspect of their personality. That being said, like maybe that's not the best example, because something like scars, anybody could have scars on their face, and I think that it would be. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but it's always a good idea to add options when you're creating something where people expect to represent themselves. You want to give them the tools to actually do that. Another good example of a more avatar-based character creator would be the Mii's. Those are representing you not just within games, but also like the UI of the Wii or the Switch. That's my profile icon that shows up in the Nintendo eShop. Like, that is very clearly supposed to be me. Doesn't have to be. You can make a hamburger if you want. You can make a beluga whale if that's what you desire. But the choices made for the Mii character creator in terms of hair and eyes and shape, those are all kind of designed to be you rather than like something or a character that you've designed.
The Mii's are a great example because they are very much supposed to be you, but the options it lets you do, you can like warp that to be, you can be a painting of the Mona Lisa, or like you said, a fucking cheeseburger. But the Mii's are a great example.
And that is a really good lead-in to kind of my next point, which is style versus substance. Which the general point I want to make with this section is that sometimes removing options and going with a simplified art style, simplified options, but a breadth of like tools to work with those options will give you more freedom than it would for a game with 4 trillion sliders that you have to mess with. So a question for you. When you start working on a character in the game, how long do you typically spend on it? And when you do it, do you feel the impulse to like try every single option in the creator? Or do you just kind of like go through and pick whatever you think works best?
I think again, this depends on the game. Like with Baldur's Gate 3, I did go through and try literally every option. But I knew that I was going to be playing this character for an entire story, so I wanted to spend the time on that. But I played a long time ago, like when Street Fighter 6 first released, I got it on PS4, and I played a little bit of the character creator there, and I just was overwhelmed by the amount of sliders. I was just like, I'm just gonna, move them back and forth randomly and go down and get it over with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I didn't feel as connected to that character because it's going to be a fighting game. Like, I'd rather play as Ryu or something. But I don't know. It depends on the game. I think I spent a lot of time in Dragon's Dogma when that first released, creating a character.
Mm-hmm. The original or the new one?
The original. I haven't played the new one yet. But in hindsight, I feel like it doesn't matter as much. So let me say, the first time I played it, I spent a lot of time trying to make a character, as I did in Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not that many choices that define your character outside of their experience. Outside of their appearance, sorry.
Right.
So on a replay, I just made Bob Ross. It took me like 5 minutes. I was like, I'm just going to play through as Bob Ross because the game is fun. The character doesn't matter.
Right.
So it all depends on the game. If it's going to be a game where I can flesh out the character more than their appearance, then I will spend a lot of time on the appearance so that it can enhance their personality, their whatever. But if not, then I'm just not going to spend any time at all.
So that's actually a curious thing. So what was it in Dragon's Dogma versus Baldur's Gate? Because they're both, I mean, I think Baldur's Gate definitely is probably the single game that I feel like has the most payoff for spending a lot of time in a character creation, because not only are they, very, very nicely rendered and very detailed, but you get a lot of face time with your character, and they get, animated cutscenes, and I felt very rewarded for spending that much time with my character creator.
Yeah.
What was it about Dragon's Dogma that made you not want to spend a ton of time on it?
Like you said, there's just not much of that in Dragon's Dogma.
Mm-hmm.
The core of Baldur's Gate, to me, the fights are fun, but it's mostly the storytelling and the story that kept me
engaged.
Thank you. Engaged in the game. Whereas Dragon's Dogma, it was very much the combat, the fighting. It was fun, changing your class, and it was the gameplay of that more than the story in Dragon's Dogma for me. So
that makes sense. So getting back to the kind of style versus substance, I think the more detailed you have of an art style in the game, you inherently have to have a more in-depth character creator tool, especially if you're wanting it to be an avatar versus if you're wanting it to represent people, the more detail that you add to the game, the more features that you have to have in order for that to actually represent someone. So with a Mii, for example, you can have, what is it? Probably no more than 50, not even that, 25 options per, 25 noses, 25 ears, 25 eyes, 55 burgers, 55 fries.
And a large drink.
So there's honestly not that many options, because it's a very abstract representation of what what your avatar is going to be. So whereas if I'm playing in Baldur's Gate and I have these, I can see the pores of my character and I can tell he's got a blackhead on the left side of his nose. In order to make something that actually looks like someone, or that looks like what you imagine, you need to include options like eyebrow width and eyebrow height, and how long is the bridge of the nose, and what is the shape of the nose, and those things exist in the Mii Maker, but in order for them, when you start getting into this hyper realistic art style, you can have 25 sliders for the nose, and you get lost in kind of this maze of menus to do individual features. So when you're coming up with a character creation tool, the art style is something really important to consider. And it's important to consider, is having this realistic art style worth the trade-offs of having to implement so many options in order for it to be useful? Because I think if you try and do something to the level of the Mii Maker, but with an art style like Baldur's Gate, people are going to feel really hamstrung and limited in the options that they have. So these more abstract, cartoony art styles not only are easier for people to create with, but easier and quicker, but they can also more quickly represent the type of thing that you're trying to do rather than like it can represent the type of thing you're trying to do. Not exactly, but you can get there a lot quicker. I guess the what I'm trying to say is like there's a trade-off for doing a realistic style versus something that is more abstract and flexible. Baldur's Gate 3, it's going to look like a person. It's going to look like a real ass person.
Yeah.
But with the Mii's, you can make it look like a person, and it passes visually as like, oh yeah, that's Steve, like I know him, or that's Bob Ross, and it took you 15 minutes to do it because you gave him a big afro and you gave him his nose, and you don't even have to get it that exact thing. You just kind of like match it up more or less. It's a lot harder to get that when you have this realistic art style and your brain is like interpreting this as a human face rather than as like a representation of a face. And for me, kind of to answer my earlier question, I spend like an obsessive amount of time in character creators. I can't not try every option to the point that I'm like not enjoying it. I want to stop, but I'm like, oh, I know I'm 13 menus deep and I've been doing this for 3 hours, but by God, I need to make sure that my calf width is correct. I got to make sure I've spent this much time. I don't care about the sunk cost fallacy. It is like an impulsive need, and I know I'm not the only one who feels like that.
Yeah.
And a good point that you made earlier that I also wanted to reiterate and make myself was that if you're going to have a very substantial character creator with a lot of detail and options, that time needs to be respected for the user. A good example is I spent a very long time on my Elden Ring character. I spent like 3 hours making my Elden Ring character. I don't know why. Again, I just had to try all the options. I had to see everything, and I'm like, ooh, do I want my nose to be that thick? Let me try the big one. Let me try the small one. But I never actually saw their face. Yeah. Once I started playing the game, I very quickly was like, okay, this is a third-person game. I don't really see them. Oh, here's a cool helmet. Well, there goes all of the work I spent on this character.
I think I have a better answer for when you asked me why Dragon's Dogma I didn't care as much about the character creator. If you're gonna spend 2 hours, it's not viable to me to spend 2 hours to make a silent protagonist. That's what it is. It took me 2 hours to make this Dragon's Dogma character the first time I played, and then I'm basically Link the whole time. I have like no emotion. But yeah, if you're gonna make a character creator that has that much detail, then you've got to have that much detail outside of appearance when it comes to how your character is represented in the world.
Exactly. You have to respect the amount of time that people put in. And maybe for some people, that's fine. Maybe they don't care that, like, I'm going to spend, 2 hours making this character. And it doesn't matter that I can't see it to me because I know that this is, Barmon, my OC from 8 D&D campaigns. And I need to know that it's him. And it makes me, and that might be all good and well, but I think, just take that into consideration if you're going to add a character creation tool into a game of like, how much time are people going to need to spend to make something that looks good? Is it better to maybe do a more simplistic art style with the trade-off of they can make something quickly? And if you're going to stick with doing a more realistic, in-depth art style, make sure that there are opportunities to like, let the people see the thing that they actually made. Let people see the thing that they spent a lot of time making. I'll say like Fallout New Vegas. It's been a lot of, I didn't spend that much time in the character creator. I just made a guy.
You spent the perfect amount of time making that guy.
You go through and I pick the options that I think are funny. I made a balding red hair man with a big beard and glasses.
Dude, his mutton chops, I believe.
Oh yeah, he had big mutton chops.
Big old chops, dude.
Just like, whatever 12-year-old me thought was funny at the time.
Boy, was it fun.
And not only, it's a third-person game, but there was enough opportunities where, like, during conversations, I'm seeing his face. Mm-hmm. During the VAT system, if I was playing a melee character, oftentimes I would see his face, like, doing a cool attack. Mm-hmm. I felt like that effort, the little effort, even that little bit of effort, I felt rewarded. And then in future playthroughs of New Vegas, I was like, I'm going to spend a lot of time on the character creator because this is like a useful amount of time for me to spend because I'm going to get to see my character in these different scenarios rather than just like putting on a helmet 5 minutes into a game and then you never really see their face again because it would be it's like a bad gameplay decision to not wear a helmet.
Mm-hmm. I think Bethesda games are another amazing example because of how many, just the sheer amount of dialogue options mm-hmm. and the amount of role play you can do in this role playing game.
Right.
Fallout's a great example. I spent a lot of time in the Fallout character creator too.
It's a good one. Mm-hmm. I think it strikes a pretty good balance of you can spend a lot of time in it if you want, but you can also, just kind of throw something together and it looks okay. Mm-hmm. It doesn't give you so many options that you feel completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So kind of a general point there is that when you're going to do realistic graphics or even like, not realistic graphics, but a lot of options, the challenging point there kind of becomes the user interface. Mm-hmm. And the more options, the more sliders and knobs and adjustments that you have to make, the more complicated that user interface has to be. And that is a really important thing to consider when making a character creator. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Have you ever actually had fun while using the character creator?
This is an easy one. Yes. It was really fun in Dragon's Dogma making Bob Ross. It was really funny. But at the same time, I grew up playing like the first Baldur's Gate games, and anytime I open up a game and it's like choose your class, there's like goosebumps, dude. So yes, I have a lot of fun making characters in games.
Yeah. I think they can be fun. Mm-hmm. I have had a lot of fun in the Mii Maker.
Oh yeah, Mii Maker too.
Like, like, oh, let me rotate these eyebrows 45 degrees and put them on the top of the head so they look like alien antenna. And then I'm going to use these glasses and make them red. And yes. There's a lot of fun stuff you can do. Mm-hmm. But I have had like, what is a good way to put this? Compulsive need to like look at all these options, and I feel physically bad from trying to like do all of the options in the character. I feel exhausted by the time I go through every menu and submenu, and it can just, a poor interface for creating a character can be exhausting and kind of turn people off from the game before it even starts. Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that, because I too feel that when I open up a game, a character creator, and there's just a wall of sliders, mm-hmm. I just skip it. I don't check out every option. I skip it. I'm like, nope. So I'm glad that like FromSoft in Elden Ring, for example, you can pick a basic appearance, and mm-hmm. then you can open up a more detailed, and then that's where all the sliders are. They're all hidden. You don't have to go there.
I think that's a really good way of doing it, is like, mm-hmm. here is like the Mii Maker version where, you can kind of position things in a way that makes sense at a very high level. But then if you want to like, I desperately need to change the width of this the bridge of his nose is too wide. It is too damn wide. I need to, like, this is not what Bartholomew looks like. I have to fix it. For those people, like, That's good. And I do feel like for Elden Ring, I still spent 2 hours in the creator, but there were certain things I'm like, I don't care about that feature. And so I'm just going to use this kind of overall slider and just call it a day.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is kind of every character creator has a slider of some sort. You know, adjust how wide the bridge of the nose is, how high or low are the eyebrows on the face. It is very hard to get a gauge of what that feature does without literally just sliding it all from one extreme to another, and then you ultimately pick somewhere kind of in between.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Monster Factory.
Shout out to Monster Factory, a show that says everything needs to be an extreme.
Either the max or the minimum, baby. Nothing in between.
But that's like kind of a crappy way to do. I mean, I can't think of a better way to do it, but it sucks. It's not fun.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I think I've played some that let you like switch to the max or min value by using the triggers. I think that's cool when it's conveyed that that's how it works. But specifically using a controller, when I need to go through 50 sliders for this character and I don't really know what any of them actually do, and so I have to slide from one extreme to the other over and over again, it's exhausting. It is literally like exhausting to have to go through this whole process.
And you're like not at the right angle. You're like, oh, that didn't change anything. And you move to a slightly different angle. You're like, oh, that changed everything.
Oh my God. Okay. And then what slider was that changed? I think that was nose height.
Was it jaws or jowls? I don't. Yeah. Yeah.
That is so accurate. And again, like it can be kind of forgiven in a game where there's 25 total options. Even that seems like a lot, but you know, if you're just moving through quickly and it's not that detailed, that's one thing. But when you have these really in-depth systems, it can just be such a nightmare. And you want to give people options. You want to let them change everything. But, you know, even the best character creators don't have a great interface because I think it's kind of inherent to this sort of system. I think the Wii, it worked pretty well with the motion controls because it was big. You know, there's big options, big touch targets with the Wiimote, so you're not having to like try and finely move it. And if I want to go to the left, I click and I just kind of flick my wrist and it goes all the way to that extreme. You know, that worked pretty well. I think these things work a lot better with a keyboard and mouse. You can really like move through those sliders pretty quick. But a lot of people play on console, and so just, you know, something to consider is like what this experience is going to be and what the first time a user is ever going to interact with your game is this character creator, and what can you do as a developer and as a designer to kind of mitigate this being a hellacious process.
I think an answer, well, earlier you asked, you said you don't know of a better way to do it than sliders. I don't know if this is better, but have you seen the Fallout 4 character creator?
I have not.
So Fallout 4 did it differently than any of the Fallouts before, where it's your character looking in a mirror, and you just click on parts of their face and like move them around. And then you can use the scroll wheel to like increase whatever part you clicked on.
Oh, so almost like a 3D modeling thing where I could like select one section of the face and extrude out.
But yeah, no, basically that. You like click on a part, you can move it around, you can extrude it, and yeah. But that's like the first time it's done that before, and I think that works really well with a keyboard and mouse. But the first time I played Fallout 4 was on my PlayStation 4, and it did not work that well, and I did not spend much time in the character creator.
I mean, that's fair. It's hard to design a system like this that works on a console. It just is. I think things like, you know, maybe mapping the extremes to a button would help a lot. I have seen a couple that have done stuff like that. But it's also kind of hard to like convey exactly what, like how do you make an icon that indicates if you click this button, it will take you to the extreme value on the slider? I don't know if I would identify like that immediately.
I know some games, and it's not always character creation sliders, but just scrolling sliders in general. There's like some games you press R1 and it skips ahead like 10 units rather than just one. I think that's an okay middle ground, but still not as efficient as like keyboard and mouse.
Right. And yeah, I mean, there's ways to mitigate this and to make it better. And the more you can do to kind of just make that process a process that is inherently like time consuming and tedious, everything you can do to make that a little bit easier on people just helps them get into the game faster, makes the process less nightmarish, gives them a better first impression of your game. I think another kind of way to mitigate this is making it clear at a very high level what the options available are and keeping that in scope as often as you can. And I feel like that's a very abstract thing. So an example is you look at your character creator, and at the top level, you'll have like head, body, armor, and, like skin color or something, or maybe like hair. And so you do the body and you do the hair, and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the face. And then you open the face, and there are now like 10 additional sub-menus that you have to look at.
Right.
And in my head, I'm mentally thinking like, okay, well, I'm almost done. And now I get to play here's like 15 more menus. And I have to look at all the menus.
Right.
And I acknowledge this as a character flaw, but other people feel this way. I am positive that there are other people who have this like impulse to try everything.
Oh yeah.
And I'm probably going to go as far to say like, I think a pretty big percentage of people feel like that. So anything you can do to kind of make it clear from that high level picture, these are the steps that you need to go through. It's like when you're filling out a form and you're like, okay, there's 5 pages on this form, but you go to page 3 and it's like page 3, part 1, page 3, part 2, there's so many sub steps that you're like, well, why didn't you just tell me there were 15 pages to begin with? And keeping that in scope, I think, makes it feel not as tedious. So one solution to this, the kind of the UX problem, to middling success, I would say, is games that let you upload a picture and then, try and convert that into a character. Have you ever tried one of these?
No, I've seen how catastrophically bad they can be, though.
They never really do a good job. I tried the 3DS had like a Mii Maker version.
Ooh. Okay, I did try that one actually, yeah. It did not turn out really good.
No. It's just picking like, okay, well, what does your face generally look like? I guess like that. And it just doesn't really work because maybe it would work better with some of these more in-depth character creators, but especially with more simplistic ones, you don't want to match the shapes one-to-one. You want to match like the idea of a person's face and make a caricature, and computers are not good at doing that.
No.
Programmatically.
Yeah.
And also you're mapping a 2D image and trying to make a 3D model from that is always hard. It is always a challenging thing to do. So in general, when it comes to the user interface, try and make it as pleasant of a process as you can for the user, whether that be through software tricks, making it not as involved, or things like adding in some nice music, like make it a nice place to be, make it relaxing, calm. I think I'm going to talk about it a lot. The Mii Maker, it's got some very chill music. I feel happy. I feel like I'm in like a little shopping mall going on a little makeover spree. I like the music in Baldur's Gate 3 during the character creation, but it's a little much.
It's getting you ready for an adventure,
I'm
dude.
I'm ready for an adventure for 2 hours.
Yeah, I get that.
So it...
Wait, while we're on the topic of Baldur's Gate 3 again, I want to know if anyone else has had this specific problem. I have spent, like I said, not usually do I spend a long time in character creators, but Baldur's Gate 3 has been the one game where I've spent hours in a character creator. I spent a lot of time making new characters, and I get to the end where I press OK, and I just don't like what I just spent an hour making, and then I turn the game off. I just, like, I don't want to play this, actually. I changed my mind. I don't know if that's a specific problem to me, but I'm just curious if anyone else has that problem.
100% been there. 100%. I'm just like, oh, I spent 2 hours on this and it looks like ass. Like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? I was not cooking with this.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know what you do about that. You know, maybe just try and make it easy and fast as possible to, like, get the general idea of what you want and then get started. And I do think that a lot of those issues would be resolved by, like, sticking to a more simplistic art style. I get that hyper realistic is the trend right now, and that is, you know, sometimes that is the best choice for your game. And if that's the case, like, you can only do so much. And so just try and make the process as smooth as possible. The last point I wanted to make on this, as far as, like, making that process easy, is sometimes you can do little, like, animation tricks to make it better. I think The Sims does a really good job of, like, there's a lot of options to pick. You know, you make your character, and then you make their face, and then you pick their height, and then you pick their weight, and then you pick their outfit, and then you pick their summer outfit, and then you pick their formal attire, and then you pick their personality. And the entire time that you're doing it, the sim is kind of responding to what you're doing. Like, you give him a tux, and he's like, "Oh, shabada-doo," and, you know, look, like, kind of checking themselves out in the mirror, feeling really good. Or you put on, like, you give them underwear and an oversized T-shirt as their formal wear, and they'll, like, hunch over and go, "Man," you know.
Yeah.
They add a lot of personality that still makes it feel fun, you know. If you have a complex system that you can't really get around through design, try and make it fun. Try and do what you can to make the process enjoyable. And that way, if you do come up with something that you hate, you're like, well, you know, doing the character creation tool wasn't that bad. You know, make it an enjoyable process if you can.
You know, as much as I spent in character creators back in the day, I never played a Sims game, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I played a lot of Spore, though, so I know exactly what you mean about them. Like, you give them a new mouth, they're like, like, yeah, that's my guy. Because, yeah, it's also, Spore's also by Maxis. They nailed it. They nailed it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it helps. I don't have a good transition here for the next point I want to make. So I'm just going to ask, CJ, have you ever tried to make yourself in a game using the character creation tool, but felt like you weren't able to make yourself, not due to your own ability, but due to the options that were available?
Never myself, but sometimes I do get, like, an idea for something and it's just not there. I'm like, okay. I can't think of a specific example, but I do know this feeling. I do know what you're trying to get at here. Yeah.
I do feel that, like, sometimes you'll be in a game with 15 menus and 12 sub-menus for each main menu, and there's so many options, and it feels like you can do anything, and I'm trying to make myself, and then I, as a bog standard white man, I can't make me. I'm trying to pick options that make this feel like me, but I can't. I acknowledge that to some extent that's probably a skill issue. And, like, it's hard to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, which of these traits look like me? I think that's a hard thing to do in general if you're not an artist or somebody who spends a lot of time, like, thinking about form and shape. Like, I don't look at myself that much other than when I'm brushing my teeth. You know. So that's part of it. But I think also, like, it can be hard. The options provided in a game might be plentiful, but they're not always covering the bases of what you need to represent most people.
I have an adjacent problem to that. I think one time, I don't know which game it was, but I do remember trying to make myself, and they don't let you make an ugly fucking character. I'm like, this dude looks like me if I was really hot. This is not me.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's true. I'm like, I am not an Adonis. I like, let me like give myself like a weird crooked smile or like a, like maybe not the most satisfying note. Let me give myself like crow's feet and like bags under my eyes. If I want to make myself, and you're going to make a game with an avatar, you have to let people kind of make themselves look dumb. You have to make people look ugly, because that's how people look. Like, even the most beautiful person that you get in close and you look at their face, and people look like monsters when you get up close. Like, you're like, do your eyes really look like that? Are they like, has one always been bigger than the other? Is that really what my nose looks like? When you break it down into the component pieces, it's not really like what you would expect. And that's, number one, hard to do, but also very rarely represented in a real way.
Biggest complaint about Baldur's Gate 3. I love everything about that game. I love every single companion you get. They have so much character put into them, but not one of them is not fucking hot as hell. Right? They're like, Gale, the comic relief wizard, fucking stud.
Oh my God, he is.
It's like, come on, not one ugly character.
Yeah, or even like a normal looking character. Give me a 6. Like, come on, I'm begging for it. Right? Why am I on Love Island in this game?
But that's my biggest complaint about BG3. Other than that, solid game.
That's very fair, especially for characters that, like, I don't think should be hot. I'm like, based on the character traits that you have, like, this just doesn't, I don't think you should be this Adonis character, this like peak human physique. That's just not you.
Yeah, and they give you the option to make some pretty messed up looking characters yourself, but none of your companions are. So all these like really great looking tins are like led by a fucking troglodyte. And it's funny, if anything else.
Yeah. So I think a lot of these problems I've been aware of for myself to an extent, but I became like infinitely more aware of when I started playing games with my fiance, who has brown skin and like long curly hair. And I'm going to be honest, it's not like a particularly unique hairstyle. It's just curly hair that's long. It's not an afro. It's not like anything particularly crazy. It's just curly hair that's long, or in short at times. I wouldn't say her skin tone is anything like unique. These aren't digs or anything, obviously, but I wouldn't say that there's any particular aspect of her that is like, wow, that is a unique looking person. That is a person that like is unique, and I can logically understand like why this person wouldn't be represented. No, I mean, she's just a person.
You hear that? He doesn't think you're unique. I hope you're listening to this.
No. But consistently in character creation tools, we're not able to do something that even comes close to what she looks like. I think
if you're not an average height, straight-haired white man, you can't make yourself in most character creators.
It's true. And I mean, I think it's gotten better. I think Baldur's Gate 3 did a really good job of like providing just a plethora of options.
Oh, yeah.
But getting back into like, avatar versus character and covering those baseline of options, for Baldur's Gate 3, there were more options for curly hair than I've ever seen in any game. And I like, good on them, because technically that is hard to implement. Like that is a challenge, and you have to put in work to make that happen. And I genuinely like, I feel for that. But none of them were just normal ass long curly hair. It was all like, oh, here's a giant hot pink afro, or here's like, curly hair on one side with dreadlocks in the middle, or like shaved on one side. I'm like, I just want to do something that like kind of passes for her so we can like play as each other in the game. I'm not asking for much. She's, again, this isn't like, wow, like, this is a normal hairstyle that I feel like I have seen on hundreds and hundreds of other people.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not there. And so I feel like for Baldur's Gate 3, I give it a pass because they had a lot of options and it's a fantasy game. I get wanting to have like cool hairstyles. You want to feel like a badass. You want to be cool. You don't want to be Joe Schmo. And I get that. They might not have like so when they provide some options and they might not be exactly it, I give it a pass. But this goes back to like, you're not even covering the baseline of what people have. Pick like the top 25 hairstyles in the United States, and I guarantee her hairstyle is going to be on it. For like pick top 25 for women, top 25 for men, it's going to be there. And you're not even covering like the baseline of what most people would have. Another good example of this is like, I think one of the first times that I had a hard time representing myself was I was younger and I was growing my hair out, and I was like, okay, I want to have, I want to be a guy that has long hair. And it's like your options are afro or Skrillex, long straight hair that's like shaved on one side. And I'm like, oh, okay, but like, where's just like the normal long hair for a guy? Well, there's normal long hair for women, but that's a gendered option and you can't pick that.
Different. I think it's gotten better. It's gotten a lot better.
It has definitely gotten better. And I think I like the approach that Baldur's Gate 3 has, where things aren't really gendered or like specified in any way. It's like, these are a bunch of Lego pieces. These are a bunch of Lego pieces and you can put whatever on whatever. And like, oftentimes, you'll scroll through the list and you're like, okay, these are obviously the guy hairstyles. I'm doing air quotes. And these are obviously the girl styles, because you'll get to a halfway point and you'll start seeing like pigtails and bows. And I'm like, okay, like this is the cutoff point. I usually pick my hair from the women's section for hair. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Same.
But like, when that wasn't an option before, that sucked. Because I'm like, well, shit, I guess I'll make my mutton chop guy, because that's the only thing I can do. Like, I can't do me anymore. I need to pick something else. So yeah, I do think it's gotten better. I think Baldur's Gate 3, we're going to talk, I've already said a lot about it. I do think it is one of the gold standards for character creations. It gives you a lot of options. It lets you do things that like I didn't even think I wanted. Like, for skin tone, man, they got a lot of options. Like they have some really, everything short of just giving you a color wheel, which I think would have been worse if they gave you a color wheel, because it's hard to pick a good color from a wheel. They give you 100 different skin tones, and then you can like go into a submenu. It's like, okay, you don't want to do like a regular skin tone. Here's like 65 shades of green and 45 shades of blue. It gives you everything. And they even go out of their way to make them look as if they're skin, rather than like a blue tint on a regular skin or a brown tint on a white skin. Like,
right.
You can almost feel the blood underneath the skin, like coloring what this person's face looks like. They do an incredible job.
Yeah.
Kind of bringing back what you had mentioned earlier with like not being able to make a normal, regular, or ugly person. Like, one thing I've almost never seen done well in games is like, wait, every game you are a buff, strong person. And for some games that's fine. Some games that makes perfect sense. Like, I'm playing Skyrim, and I like, in canon, I am like this hero, or I haven't played Skyrim. Please don't kill me. You have like this backstory as like you are this character coming into it, and it kind of makes sense that like you would be this buff, strong figure. But if you're gonna do a game with an avatar where you expect people to make themselves, that doesn't have to be every game. But if that's what your expectation or what you want people to do, why not add that as an option? Why is that never an option to just like, make them look more regular, not make them look like this, not have six-pack abs the entire game?
I think the answer to that might be it'd be harder to develop. It'd be more work than it's worth. Because I feel like special cases, you do want to be just a regular dude, but most people playing fantasy games would rather be the buff guy.
Right.
And so if you add the like normal looking build, you'd have to add a normal build for all the armor that you've made too.
Right.
And it's just not worth it because more people are going to want to play the buffer, the more fantastical version of themselves.
Yeah, you want to play this like this vision of the hero of the champion or whatever. You want to be the gladiator. I get that, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, especially again when you get more realistic, that has a pretty big effect on the animations and on the armor. That being said, I do feel like there are games that will give me like a million really specific sliders, like let me adjust the width of my calves, like let me give myself these giant, insane looking calves, and then like scrawny little thighs, and then like I'm gonna give myself the largest biceps ever, and then tiny little shoulders. If you're gonna do options that let me adjust like the weight and the height of the character in terms of muscle mass, like why not give me some options to like, again, just like make it look like me? I'm a regular dude. Again, I don't think it's like a requirement. I think that there's a lot of other there's a lot of other things to consider, but just in terms of like something that I've noticed that has never really been done in a way that I've found to be satisfying for games that want it to be me, like straight up, it's not going to look like me if I can't control that. It's going to look like this idealized, ripped version of me that just doesn't exist. That's just not real. And so at that point, I'm either like, okay, I guess that's kind of me, or I just make a funny guy. I make Bob Ross.
I think the only game that's ever really took weight into account and made it an actual part, there's not even a character creator, Rockstar games, like I don't know if all the GTAs did it, but I just watched a video the other day that was like small details in GTA 4. I don't play GTA. One of them, if your character's overweight because you eat too much food, you can't jump some of the fences that a lighter character could.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you lift more weights, I think, I'm not sure how it works, but your character actually looks more buff and will do more damage in a fist fight.
That's cool. That's cool.
Which is why I desperately wish Rockstar would make a character creator in their offline games. But I don't know if it would work because we wouldn't have like Arthur Morgan's if you could make your own character. So I don't know. There's a lot of trade-offs here because I know Red Dead 2 also, if you eat a lot, Arthur can get fat and people will comment on it.
Oh, really?
I don't know if there's any gameplay changes to that, but that's Rockstar does weight. It's the only instance I can think of that does stuff like that in video games. I don't know.
I know the only one I was able to think of was The Sims. It's a simulation game. It makes sense. There's a slider. It's like big or small. I guess you can kind of do it in the Mii Maker. It's like, do you want to be a circle or do you want to be a line? You know?
Yeah.
It's not neither one I would consider to be like the greatest. Like I don't want to say the greatest because they are the greatest because you're usually the only ones, but like they're like a basic implementation of it, and it's appreciated that it's there for people who truly want to like represent something that kind of looks like them. And not just that. I kind of like went down this unintentional rabbit trail, like specifically talking about like being fat, but like some people are just built different. Like so truly, like you look at like strongman competitions, and they're built like a tank. Like they don't look like this ripped guy. They look like a beast, like a bear. You know, why not? If you're gonna if you're gonna provide 800 sliders in your game, shouldn't some of those be designed to like not only make a face that looks like you, but also a body that resembles something like you?
I believe Street Fighter 6 would be a good modern example of something that does all that right, because it lets you adjust all of that stuff. It's just been overshadowed by the fact that it does it too good, and you can make some really monstrous looking people.
I mean, that's true. And for me personally, I like the idea of just giving people all the options, giving you like, let them do it, give them all the Lego pieces and just figure it out yourself. If you want to be an avocado, if that's what you want to be, then hell yeah. Like if you want to manipulate and twist and turn these systems to make something you're not, like that means that you've come up with a good system, because you can make anything. If you can be an avocado, you can be anything.
That's what my mama always told me.
I'll take a slight step back. All of this is me as an armchair developer who hasn't written a single line of code for this.
Yeah.
This is really hard.
Yeah.
Like doing even a basic character creator is a pain in the ass. It is a lot of work. Curly hair is like notoriously a taxing process on the CPU. I think there are ways to do it in a simplified art style that aren't as hard, but like if you're going to do it detailed, you got to like think about the physics of that. It's completely different than straight hair.
You reminded me, I was going to say this earlier, Neo 2, I don't know if you've heard of that game.
I have not.
It's sort of a Souls-like, but in Japan, it has a character creator. What I'm getting at is when you're selecting hair, I remember this specifically when you started talking about curly hair. When you're selecting your hairstyle, I think all the hairstyles are straight, but there is a curly slider that you can turn up to make every hairstyle curly.
That is really interesting.
And I think that's maybe, I don't know, I didn't get too in the weeds with that character creator either. I don't know how good it looks in-game. I just know it exists. I wanted to bring that up.
I'd like to look at that and see how it works, because that honestly, depending on how it looks, I could see that being a really good solution, rather than having to design like individual styles. But who knows? Like you mentioned, like making significant changes to the size or shape of a body affects armor and clothes and animation. Like I don't know how I would implement that. I don't have the faintest idea of how you would actually go through that.
Yeah. I know a lot of fighting games will they'll just have it stretch around your character. So there's a lot of clipping involved in stuff like Soul Calibur and Street Fighter. Well, I don't know what else you would do legitimately.
Yeah, I mean, unless you are literally like making completely different like sets of armor, you're gonna run into those problems of clipping and stuff. So me sitting in my chair talking about what should and shouldn't be is a lot easier to do than actually doing these. And in reality, I would probably come to like a lot of the same conclusions in terms of like these things just aren't worth the time for the amount of people that would actually use them, like you were saying.
But I mean, if a developer is willing to go that extra mile, hell yeah.
Yeah. I think it's always appreciated. And again, consider what the baseline is. Consider like, maybe before adding 15 different options for how the calves are shaped and what the muscle definition of like these really specific body parts look at, like maybe consider like making sure that all of the baseline stuff is covered first. Did you add like hairstyles that account for most people? Again, I don't know what accounts for most people. My thought would be like maybe going to like a hair salon and being like, all right, y'all, give me your top 50. But it's going to be different based on where you're coming from. And if you're working with like a worldwide audience, that even becomes more complicated. This is all a lot easier said than done, is basically what I'm trying to say.
I think I have a question for you.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to ask this later, then cut me off. But do you prefer... I know we've already harped on how much we like Baldur's Gate 3's character creator. Do you prefer something like that where you have, like, 2 different body styles per gender? And then, like, you have 15 faces or something
Mm-hmm.
with no sliders, or do you prefer just like billion sliders?
I think if I were given the two experiences, I would leave the first one. So having just like several preset options to pick from, I would leave that feeling better, starting the game sooner, and not really having this like anxiety that I've spent 2 hours on a character creator. I think I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, but it sounds nice to have all the sliders. That's the devil. That is the devil in me, and he doesn't need to talk. I think that what I would prefer and what I would like, the experience I would enjoy better would be having a variety of presets to choose from rather than a series of really in-depth sliders.
Okay. I think I'm in the same boat as you then.
Yeah.
I think Baldur's Gate opened my eyes to that. I used to be down for all the sliders, and then Baldur's Gate was like, nah, look, you've got 2 body styles, you've got like a few faces to pick from, and you're good, and you can still make a whole lot from that. So.
Right. I really do think that they did a good job of like giving you just enough that you can tweak, that it feels good, but not overwhelming you. And I think also with that style, you can kind of like make some things that intentionally look good and keep people on the rails a little bit more. I think for a game like Baldur's Gate 3, while you want people to like have whatever experience, just the animation is so detailed and there's just this world is so refined that it would look a little crazy and silly if you had this like monstrosity of a character with like, when they open their mouth, there's polygons like clipping through the screen. You know, that's not always what you want. Sometimes it's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to let people make a monster.
Yeah.
But other times you want to have a more controlled experience. And I think Baldur's Gate 3 is probably better for having that more controlled experience.
Oh, could you imagine though? They like released updates after the game came out because people with short characters, the kissing animation was wrong whenever you like fell in love with someone that's tall.
Oh.
So like, could you imagine someone with like really long arms? You're trying to kid, they have to like that could also be funny, but yeah, I think they did a great job with what they got, honestly.
I do too. It's all about trade-offs. It's all about just like weighing these options and picking what makes the most sense for you. So I have one last
comical.
That might not get picked up. Well, we can transition there though.
It was really funny. Every time Sam opened his mouth, his auto cat feeder just like shat out a bunch of food. Every time he opened his mouth, it was funny.
So the last kind of character creation thing is accessories I wanted to talk about. So let me ask you, when you're making a character creator, is there an accessory that you always kind of want to add at the beginning? Whether that be like a hat or a tattoo, glasses, you know, if you're doing an avatar, obviously, you know, you want it to match your appearance, but you know, do you have things that you typically like to add early on in the development of your character?
An eye scar.
Yeah.
Done. No, literally anything with the eyes, honestly. My characters that I create will always either wear glasses, have an eye scar, or my Bard in Baldur's Gate 3 had the like eye tattoo thing that went all the way down his face.
Yeah.
Anytime I make a character, there has to be something weird about the eyes going on. I don't know why. It's just something I do.
That's fair. No, I mean, that's interesting. I'm definitely in the camp of like, especially if I'm doing an avatar, he's going to wear glasses. And I want them to have like glasses that are round like mine.
Yeah, anytime it's glasses, it's got to be the square ones like mine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel that.
It's, you know, I think if the character creation tool has like, it looks nothing like me, but then I throw on the glasses, I'm like, you know, that's all right.
Yeah.
You know, it brings it pretty close.
Hey, he just like me for real.
Dude, I Supermaned myself.
Yeah.
So this is like a little pet peeve of mine, but I don't lock glasses behind a progression. Don't like make that an item I have to unlock in the game. You know, you want this to be, I'm going to say, even if it's a character creation tool, and you don't expect people to make themselves, let people add glasses. I think that should be an option just like anything else in the character creator, because like, even if it's a character I'm creating, I might imagine this is an old man and I want him to have his little readers on or something. You know, I think glasses should not be an accessory or like, you know, +2 to perception or something. You know, I mean, that's true. It's factually true. My perception score goes up when I wear them, but I feel like they're more, as somebody who wears glasses, they feel like more of like a stylistic choice for me than like they are functional, but I choose to wear glasses over contacts. I choose to like wear the glasses that I wear, and not having that option, it doesn't feel like me.
I see. I'm kind of the opposite on that, actually.
Oh.
I would rather the glasses be something you find or something you can craft or whatever. I always took in Fallout New Vegas, I took the 4 Eyes perk. So that glasses give you like +1 perception when you're wearing them, but like you have -1 when you're not. I don't know. I feel like I do wear glasses every day of my life, but sometimes I'm not wearing them, and I feel like if they're glued to my face at all times, it would be weird. I don't know. I'm sort of in the opposite camp on that.
That's fair. I understand your logic. I think the biggest sinner in this is Pokemon. That is very much like, you know, this is your Pokemon adventure, let's go. And it's like, you are a 12-year-old child with 2 preset haircuts and you're not wearing glasses. The second I, you know, make it to the 8th town in the gym or in the world that has the glasses that look like mine, I'm like, oh, okay, it's me. Like, finally it's not, I'm not playing as this random kid, but like, it's me. Maybe that's like something to do with like my own self-perception, but I don't ever see myself without them on, so I can't read something as me without them having the glasses.
That's fair. And something I noticed personally playing every Fallout game, well, every Bethesda Fallout game so far, in the like tutorial area, every Fallout game has like a little tutorial area where you create your character and then you do a bunch of small quests and then you get the option to recreate your character. In every one of those areas, there's usually a pair of glasses somewhere. Pretty early in the game, you can get glasses in every single one of those.
I like that.
So I know New Vegas was the only one with perks. I'm going to have a rant about this later. New Vegas was the only one with perks, which are like trade-offs you can get at the beginning, which just add that much more character creation detail. But if you get the 4 Eyes perk, you can immediately get +1 perception because there's just glasses on the desk in the doctor's room that wakes you up.
That's pretty cool. I never thought about it like that.
So I can see where if you had to wait in New Vegas before you get to Vegas to get glasses, how that could be a problem. But they're fairly abundant in like New Vegas and other Fallout games, thankfully.
That I honestly like that approach to it, in the concept of like, you know, this is an RPG, and in Fallout New Vegas, you were shot in the head and you wake up and you have nothing. You don't even have the clothes on your back. Like, yeah, I wouldn't have glasses like attached to my face in that situation, but like, you know, you find some on a desk. I can like imagine that as, you know, I wake up and I'm like, you know, here's some glasses, and like we're gonna not think about prescription or whatever, but you know, just I need my glasses and I'll take whatever I have available to me. I think that's a cool way of handling it.
Props to games that let you, I don't know what I'm trying to say, like Project Zomboid. I'm going to bring this up as an example. It's a zombie apocalypse game, so you don't pick a class. You pick what your occupation was before the apocalypse.
Oh, that's cool.
And if you pick like firefighter, you'll start with like a firefighter jacket. If you pick like soldier, you'll get a camo shirt at the beginning of the game. Props to games that let you start with whatever your backstory is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's actually like that perfectly leads into the next point I was going to make, which is like, outfits versus armor in games. So often you start out with like weird, dirty underwear. I don't know why it's always like dingy and brownish.
So you strive to get better stuff.
I never get better underwear though. You start out in your shamble of clothes and then you like find random stuff on the ground. But and I do think that like Fallout and stuff does a good job of this because again it's an RPG and it gives a good reason for that being the starting place. But I think a lot of games, you'll start out with just some generic armor or whatever, and I'm like, well, you gave me this level 1 armor, but I'm a wizard. Like I would have robes, and this is the background I made for myself, and now I like sometimes the first thing I do in a game is like I need to find an outfit that like fits my character
1,000,000,000%.
And then I can start the game that way, like it's matched. In that, I think I love the idea of having clothes that kind of affect your stats. But I also think that sometimes games don't do the best jobs of like matching those together. And I'll like have an item that I think would be really cool for my character, but it's like, this Eye of Ondor amulet for my wizard actually does -5 to spell casting. And so while it makes me look just like a wizard, I'm not going to wear it because it makes me a worse wizard. And I don't know, there's something to be said about that from an RPG perspective and just like going with it. But I don't know. I just, sometimes I feel a little bit frustrated by wanting to play this role that I'm created in the game and the clothes that are available either through like means of getting them or available in like the stats that they provide don't really gel with like the type of character that I want to play.
This makes me realize the kind of game that I want. Because I play Elden Ring, I play Fashion Souls when I play a FromSoft game. I don't care what the stats are. I always go for the most drippy suit.
Yeah.
But that makes me like, I want a skill-based game because there's skill-based and stat-based. In Baldur's Gate 3, I can't do that or I'll die really fast.
Right.
I want a skill-based game with as much character and like dialogue options and personality as Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
I don't know of any games like that because usually when you put that much time into that part, the rest of the game gets left out, Right. Baldur's Gate 3 is the exception.
Yeah.
It did a great job on both fronts, but it's still not a skill-based game. It's a stat-based game.
Right.
And strategy, I guess, but still, you can brute force most things if you're strong enough.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. If anybody knows of a game that kind of strikes a balance there, I'd like to hear about it because maybe they do exist. You only have so much time in the day, and there might be some really interesting games that do stuff like that. But I'm also not aware of them.
Yeah, I think Fallout maybe to a point. I mean, you still have to aim and shoot, but still, it's however much damage your gun does. So,
and I mean, if you play with VATS,
eliminates the entire need for skill.
It just kind of becomes a turn-based game in a weird way.
I had a friend in high school. There were a group of us, and we all played Fallout New Vegas. And one day, he made it very apparent that he only used VATS, and he never shot his gun without VATS. I'm like, whoa, you played an entirely different game than I did, and that's interesting.
That would be me. I suck at shooting in games, especially with a controller. I don't ever play with keyboard and mouse anyway, but like I suck at it. And so that's for me, I'm like, I can participate in the game. Thank God.
I'm really bad at, I played Fallout 4, all the Fallouts on console, and I'm really bad at that too. It's just, I couldn't imagine playing the whole thing through VATS, like he said. He's like, I never aim ever. I always use VATS. I'm like, it's an entirely different game, dude. That's cool.
Well, the very last point I wanted to talk about in terms of accessories is makeup. I'm going to admit I'm not very knowledgeable here. I don't know, but I think for a lot of people, especially women, it's a really big part of like self-expression. You know, like it's not just like, oh, I want to look pretty or whatever. Like, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of thought that goes into like, you know, contour and eyeliner and eyeshadow, and I feel like if the game is too prescriptive about like, this is the look that you're going to have, and most female characters that I've seen are wearing makeup, even if it is like subtle, they usually have some kind of like eyeliner or something. I have not seen very many that provide options to actually like customize or even pick from different presets of makeup. Again, Baldur's Gate 3 does a really good job of this. And when I made a character with my fiance, she actually like was really excited about it and was like showing me, using it as an opportunity to show me like, okay, this is eyeliner, this is blush. Like, notice when you use this color, how it appears on this type of skin tone versus this type of skin tone. It was really interesting. Like I hadn't really, it's kind of hard to tell when it's very abstract and you're like looking at it after it's already applied. Being able to just kind of quickly go and look at how different colors look on different skin tones was really interesting. And I just think that, you know, I think that there are a pretty big percentage of game developers that are men. And so this is like, take this opportunity to like reach out to somebody, or if you are a woman or if you're a man who's knowledgeable about makeup, like awesome. But if you don't know, like, I think this is something that a lot of people would appreciate having in a character creation tool. You know, a lot of people don't leave the house without putting on makeup. And so it's kind of a hole in the system of, you know, not being able to customize that at all. You know, like I don't leave my house without my, you know, winged eyeliner. Like that's me. That's my signature look. And if you can't do that in a game, you're not really going to be able to represent yourself in that way. And again, like possibly like an entire exponential like layer of development and thought that needs to go into something like this. But, you know, but 50% of people are women. And like, I think that would, and again, not just women want to use makeup. A lot of people like it. And there's just there's a big percentage of people who would really appreciate having features like this. And it just tends to not ever be included, or it's like makeup on off, you know?
Yeah.
I think the Mii's are like particularly bad at this, where it's just, you know, some very basic, like one skin tone, eyeliner, blush, lipstick. I wish I could say more, but I think that is the mindset that a lot of people will be going into it with. And this is just an opportunity to like reach out to other people who are more knowledgeable than you and like see what options make sense, to give people the amount of customization that, you know, they want. You know, especially if you're going to do like an avatar based game, you want people to have at least the basic options, you know, include a couple, and it goes a long way versus not having anything at all.
Yeah. Oh, you got me wondering. You said she was showing you like how makeup works in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
Are there like, I wonder if there are any like Baldur's Gate 3 makeup tutorials on YouTube.
Oh man,
is there a market for that?
I guarantee it. I was surprised. It's one of those things where, you know, you look at like, you can watch a movie, pick any movie, and then take a screenshot from that movie, and then use like a color picker and look at somebody's like face, or look at you know, something that you think is white or black, and then you'll look at it and like, oh, that's orange. You know, my brain interpreted this as white because of the context of the scene, but like the actual colors are different. It's kind of like that with makeup, where the colors that would make sense to me intuitively based on somebody who has no experience applying makeup are not really what I would have expected. And so being able to just, you know, here's one skin tone, here's like 15 different options, and here's how like the shades affect the look. It was very interesting. It was honestly like a really informative experience, and just made me kind of appreciate like how much work goes into applying makeup and how you're literally like painting a sweaty, wet 3D model in the mirror so it's reversed, like while trying to hold it. It is a art making it work, and you know, for the amount of time people spend doing it themselves, spend, you know, a little bit of time adding those into the game, because I think people would really appreciate that.
I had no idea there were that many makeup options in BG3.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
I was surprised. And it was cool. And, you know, not just for like, you know, getting your winged eyeliner or whatever, but, you know, you could do things like, I don't know, like make yourself Robert Pattinson Batman and give yourself eyeliner.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. You know, there are certain looks that you kind of need those tools in order to achieve. You know, you could like make your face look extra sallow or something by, you know, adding some makeup on the cheeks to make them look sunken in. There, it does give more options even outside of, you know, like basic application.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't have, just not speaking from a lot of experience there, but I think it's something that more games should try and do.
Yeah.
And it's something to at least consider when you're making a creation tool. All right. That's the bulk of my kind of spiel. I had a little fun thing at the end that I wanted to go through with you and just talk about like some of our favorite character creation tools that we've used, some of the ones that we think are dumb or that suck, some of our favorite characters that we've created. Just a little bit of like a little potpourri of character creation topics. You mentioned Spore earlier.
Yeah.
I've never had the luxury of playing Spore, but I think it looks really cool. I think it looks like a lot of fun. Have you played that game very much?
For little, I don't remember how old I was, 12-year-old CJ who spent way too much time in every character creator, Spore was a dream come true, dude.
Yeah.
Like, the entire galaxy kneeled before the Bean Empire. So you start the game as this, like, amoeba, and then you can go all the way to the space age where your civilization has ships now. You can fly around. And at the beginning, you start as this little bean thing, and I didn't change too much about him. But as time went on and you get to land, you're supposed to make an animal from that amoeba. And I'm like, what if I just kept the bean shape? So the beans were born, and they took over the galaxy, and it was amazing. And I remember exactly one line. I met these banana people, and they all speak in Sim speak. And for my entire life, I just can remember this stupid banana opening up space comms and going, hey, blah, blah, blah. And it stuck with me for way too fucking long, and I need to get it out of my head. Help.
Oh my god, I know exactly what you mean. These random audio cues that just stick with you for no reason.
It's that stupid banana.
Blah, blah, blah.
But yeah, I loved Spore. I haven't played it in forever, and shoot, we should like play that sometime. I don't know.
I think that would be a lot of fun. It's one of those games I've always kind of seen, and like as a child being dumb and not having any concept of like what purchasing means or like what hardware it would take to do it. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Want, but have no concept of how to like acquire. And then like later in life, I was like, oh, that looks cool. It didn't have a PC to play it on. Now I have no excuse. We should play Spore.
Yeah. It does a lot right, and then it does a lot wrong. I think most people like the end game when you're in space is the most fun. Up to that point, sometimes the like tribal phase and the civilization phase sort of seem tedious.
I see.
If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I played. Maybe I got that backwards, and the space part was the tedious part. I remember traveling the galaxy and having a lot of fun with my like little bean people.
Yeah. It sounds pretty cool.
It was neat. What about you? Any cool character creators that you that stick out to you?
Gotta I spent a lot of time in The Sims as a kid. I never actually owned The Sims, but it's something I would play with my cousin a lot. You know, and at times we would try and make ourselves. We'd try and like, you know, make The Simpsons or you know, make the Cullens from Twilight because my cousin was really into that, and I was like, okay, I guess we can do that. I'm trying to think what's a good one. I'm just gonna say probably Fallout New Vegas was my favorite, and that was one that you and I did together.
Yeah, that was really fun.
I just made like, again, just like picking the options that I thought were funny. Give him big mutton chops. Give him like, I don't know. I think I made him like receding hairline or bald or something. Again, what I thought was funny when I was a kid.
This is a funny example of how the backstory and the lore comes out of appearance rather than the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Because I made him and I'm like, oh, he looks like a dad. He's just like a regular dad. And then that became like his entire, he's like a dad. And I'm like, okay, well, why is he dad? Why is he called dad? I'm like, oh, he was shot in the head and that's all he can remember is his name is Dad. And he just tells everybody to call him Dad. Well, why is he going around the wasteland? He's looking for his son. He's looking for his son.
That's so funny because now that I think about it, New Vegas is the only one of the 3D Fallouts where you're not actually looking for your son or father or whatever. That's so
That
funny.
is so funny. I never thought about that either.
That's hilarious.
This is the Fallout. I knew that I had to be looking for a son or something.
Yeah, you just can't escape.
I ended up picking up a baseball bat, and that kind of sealed the deal. Dad was a psychopathic lunatic who just wanted to play baseball with his son and expressed that desire by hitting people with the baseball bat and often taking their head and using it as the baseball. One of the most fun I've ever had in a game.
So great. Making the most psychotic dad. Oh, he was a beautiful man.
Tell you what doesn't have a good character creator. Roblox. Have you seen that shit, man? I don't know. Here's my second boomer moment of the episode, but I don't know how these kids do it. I don't know how you can visually look at that. And I know it's about the community and like playing with your friends or whatever.
Oh, fuck, it has changed.
Oh, yeah. It's different now. They kind of yassified it. But here's the thing, CJ. They keep both character models as options. Ooh. You can just pick you can pick new or old. And so for every like of these like more streamlined Mega Bloks character looking things, you'll have just a regular old boxy Roblox character running around.
I see a screenshot with them just being friends.
It's bizarre. I genuinely played this game for the first time like a year or so ago, and I was like, is this for real? Are y'all pulling my leg? Like this is really what it looks like? Oh man.
I played it a long time ago. I was super into MMOs as a kid because that's what, like, they were free.
Yeah.
And my dad was into MMOs, so I played Roblox like when it was a Wild West, when it was a Frontier.
Oh.
And it was kind of neat. You make a little Lego guy. I don't think the character creation was too in-depth back then. But then you go into all these different game modes that people have made, and it was fun. And then I see pictures of it now, and it looks like the most cursed shit I have ever laid eyes upon.
It is truly like, I can't believe this made it so far. I mean, you know, apples and oranges, comparing it to like Minecraft or something. You know, in a vacuum they don't look that different, but you know, Minecraft, it's a very consistent art style, and it's not just the character that's blocky, but it's, you know, the textures on the leaves, and the leaves are square. You know, it feels right within the world, even though the Minecraft characters are not like the most beautiful in the world. But
yeah,
it like doesn't even feel right within its own game.
No, it looks like it should be giving my computer a virus just looking at these pictures.
Yeah, I think if I downloaded this game in the 2000s, I would have been like, I would have assumed it gave my computer a virus.
Well, now that we've shitted on a kid's game.
Yeah, a very popular kids game that is beloved by many people. Just to say, yeah, sorry if you think Roblox is really cool and you love the way the characters look. To each their own.
I'll give you this. I like the idea of Roblox. It's really neat in what it tries to accomplish and accomplishes, but it just looks very cursed.
It does. It is. I think I can say without any hesitation that it is not the most visually appealing game there ever was. I think there are some games that might look a little better.
Agreed.
I've mentioned it a couple times. Can't stop myself. The Pokemon adding custom character creation is one of the best things that the series has ever done. It started with Pokemon X and Y. But so when they switched from 2D to 3D, for the mainline series, they added this. They don't have a ton of options. You know, it's usually like a few different hairstyles. There's like 5 for guys and like 25 for girls, and they are gendered. I think they were. Actually, I'm not sure about that. But they usually provide like a lot of different outfit customization. You know, you can get shirt, shoes, socks, pants, hats. They have a lot of cool stuff, and I spend way too much time. I spend way too much time like making my character look like how I want. I usually will come up with like a hair and face and eye color at the beginning, but like will change my outfit like constantly throughout the game. You know, like, oh, going to the snow area, better get my snow jacket and better go out and spend like all my money to buy a cool jacket. And it makes me like, it is nice because I am slightly more encouraged to do battles because I win money that I can then use to buy cosmetics. Like, otherwise, there's honestly not always a lot of incentive to do the random trainer battles. Now, Scarlet and Violet regressed 10 years of progress.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think X and Y came out roughly 10 years before Scarlet and Violet. Scarlet and Violet, they let you customize your hair, your face, your shoes, your socks, your gloves. But it's a game based on a school, and so you have to wear the school uniform the entire time, and it is ugly as sin.
Damn.
It is so, it's like ugly little bright purple or bright orange striped pants, like pantaloons. You look like a dork the whole game. I mean, I think bullying is not something that people should do, but if I went to Naranja Academy, I would bully the shit out of all these kids and adults, because there's adults at the school. I mean, they would all be getting swirlies and wedgies. Like, they look dumb. They look stupid. I am so mad. This was the dumbest decision they made in any game. And there are other kids. The other main cast of characters that are also students in the game don't wear the uniform. They don't wear the uniform, and I don't understand why I have to wear it the entire time. There were so many cool options, and the game has so many stores. Like, it's one of the first games that really like opens up the cities, and you can like go around, and there's all these different shops, and there'd be a lot more shops. There's literally like empty storefronts or storefronts that sell the same thing because there's not enough items, because you can only customize your shoes and socks and gloves and hat. Like, oh, it is maddening. I'm so angry about this. And, you know, Scarlet and Violet tried to do some, you know, like, nothing is gendered in that game. I think you can pick like whether you're a boy or a girl at the beginning, but like none of the outfit options are gendered, none of the face styles, none of the hairstyles. But there's nothing that looks gendered, if that makes sense. Like, and this is not something I cared about, but my fiance, she's like, I want to look like a girl. I want to look pretty. I want to like have this look, but it's just impossible with these like pants, these like these like long striped pants and a button-up shirt. Like, I just look like a generic like blob of a character that doesn't have any personality. I can't. It's insane. It makes me so mad.
Dude, the pinstripe pants and the like suspenders, it looks like you should be toting a Chicago typewriter in your backpack, dude. Legit. I'm looking at pictures of this, and at least you get a spring, summer, autumn, and winter version.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
The same shitty outfit.
The same shitty striped outfit. Oh.
What a choice. I can't believe they did that.
I honestly, I don't like getting into like video game conspiracies or whatever, but I genuinely think that this was probably like due to time constraints. I think that the game was primarily developed during the COVID pandemic. I know I read some articles more or less saying like work from home was really difficult in Japan due to like some like cultural things. It just like people had a really hard time adjusting to it. And I do think that there's parts of that game that came out kind of half-baked, largely because it was made during like a very awkward time for development. If I had to hazard a guess, I think that's why. And I think that's why there's buildings that look kind of empty, like they could have had something else there.
Okay, so for that stuff, I think maybe, but like, how much different are the character models to like Arceus or Arceus or like Sword and Shield, which came before? Like, could they not have just slapped the same clothing into that?
I think.
Was it in a different engine?
I think it was a pretty different. Yeah, I think so. Okay. I think they actually. There were some models that got transferred over from the Pokemon, but I think pretty much everything else was new. It was a new art style at the very least, and I don't think they would have been able to bring much over.
All right, I get that then. But I was going to say, if it was like all the same, I don't see why they wouldn't just slap that on there, but that's fair. That's fair.
It's, yeah, I feel very strongly about that. And Legends Arceus, on the other hand, phenomenal job. Like, some of the best options in any Pokemon game.
Oh, yeah.
It takes place in like, I'm gonna say feudal Japan, but I think that's wrong. But there's some really cool options. You can look like a ninja. You can like, there's like 15,000 different kimono options.
And at the very least, your default costume is pretty badass in Arceus.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you don't look like a dork. You look like somebody who's going out to like do some cool work out in the field.
You look like a pioneer.
Yeah. And the first you get one pair of glasses unlocked at free at the beginning, and they're my round glasses. So
perfect.
It takes a very long time actually to unlock any other shape, but I didn't care because I was satisfied.
Perfect. That's good. So earlier I mentioned that the way I create characters now is just basing them on other characters from other games. So I play a lot of, one of my favorite genres of games is like a turn-based tactical game like Xcom, where every character you have is expendable. Like Fire Emblem, your characters are expendable to a point, but each of those characters is like super unique, and every time I lose one, I'm like, no, start the game over. But like XCOM, they're all pre-generated random faces. So when you get one that does really good, that's when you like want to keep that one safe.
Right.
You don't want that one to die. That one, you'll start the game over if he dies. For me, that was the absolute legend, Ukrainian badass Commander Popov. This randomly generated Ukrainian guy like carried my team throughout my game. So much so that like whenever I'm creating a new character now, I'll just sometimes remake Popov.
Hell yeah.
XCOM 2, I tried to remake Popov, but he died immediately. So he wasn't so much of a legend in that one. Another game like that is Wildermyth. Have I told you about that game?
Mm-mm.
It's spelled Wilder and then myth, like mythology, Wildermyth.
Okay.
It is a really fun... The saddest way to explain it is it's single-player D&D, but it is really fun in that it completely, like, randomly generates this story, these characters, the stuff that can happen to them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and, like, usually a campaign of Wildermyth, you start and you select 3 characters, and I don't know if this is how other people play, but I try to keep those 3 alive, because just like XCOM, they're expendable. If they die, they're gone.
Right.
But I want them to be the heroes of the story because they're the ones you started with.
Right.
In the first campaign I played, though, I got a 4th guy who's just like an extra cannon fodder usually.
Mm-hmm.
In the final fight for the chapter in which I got him, the boss, it like randomly picks a character to like hold prisoner or something, if I'm remembering this correctly. And at the end of the fight, they get like a cool eye scar. Because
cool.
you're like fighting Gorgons, so they can like turn you to stone. He gets like a cool stone eye.
Oh, cool.
And this
cool,
guy
cool.
was just like my expendable guy that I wasn't going to use, and he was probably going to die soon.
Mm-hmm.
He became the hero for that entire campaign. And the cool thing about Wildermyth is you can like, at the end of a campaign, you can upgrade the characters that finish that campaign, and they can appear in later campaigns. It's like Legends.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
It is the coolest game I've ever played. But a lot of my characters are based on Jung Lin, which was his name, that 4th guy that became a hero, and Palma. She was a warrior that could take a lot of damage, but she could also like jump really far. She was really useful, and then she died. But when you die in that game, you can like pick a final action, and her final action was to like kill everyone around her. And she like saved the entire campaign with that one death. And so Junglin and Palma are my go-tos when I'm making characters, and Popov.
That's awesome.
That's how I make characters in games now.
Oh man, I've had no experiences like that, but that is really, really cool. I love that.
Super specific, but those are the types of games I love, dude.
Yeah.
Like pre-generated characters, like heroes made from stories, not from your mind or whatever.
Right. Pre-generated, but what happens makes the character rather than like any written story.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
so cool.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
I cannot shout out Wildermyth enough. It is one of those games that I come back to every couple of months and just play a campaign real fast. Oh, so good.
That's cool. Is it a pretty quick game?
Yeah.
Sounds like?
It's not, usually a campaign is 3 acts, and if you're like on the ball with it, each act is like 30 minutes maybe.
Oh, cool.
So you can get through the game pretty fast.
I love that. Yeah, I've got to check that one out because it sounds like a hoot.
It's fun. It's fun as hell.
All right. Well, do you have any last leaving thoughts about character creation?
Yeah, they should be in more games.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they are, then we miss out on like Arthur Morgan's or Geralt's or stuff like that. So I don't know. Conflicted.
I agree. I want more Mii Makers. That's what I'm gonna say. I want more like things that let me make a like fucked up looking guy.
Yeah.
You know, let me make cheeseburger.
Let me make a cheeseburger.
Let me make cheeseburger. I'm surprised that there haven't been more games that use a system like that. Given how popular the Mii's were and how like iconic they were in their design. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of games attempt something like that since, and I want to see more. I think they're cool. I just think they're neat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think that's it for this episode. Make sure to, if you're interested, go and check out our Discord. That's going to be linked in the description of this episode, or you can find it on our website or on YouTube, or I don't know, look under your bed. There's a piece of paper. It has the link. You know where to go. Yeah.
Let us know some cool characters you've made. Share all those deets about your epic OC.
Yeah. Tell us tell us about your cool characters. Tell us about like fun times you've had making a monstrosity in the character creation tool.
Tell us about the bad times in the character creation tool. Tell us about how shitty the UI is for this one specific game and how it could be better. Let us know.
Yeah, tell us about how you hyperfixated for 4 hours like me and could not force yourself to leave even if you wanted to, and then you never played the game.
Exactly.
Been there.
Same.
All right. This was Systems in Play, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Oh, Shabada do.
Hey, blah, blah, blah.